and I'll just share my content and start off. So I believe my slides are also visible. Upendra, are my slides visible?
Yes, sir, they are visible. You may proceed.
Okay. So thank you for the nice introduction, short and nice. And I'll be talking about machine learning. In fact, I'll try to introduce machine learning. I'll not be talking of optimization at all. I'll not be touching AI by any yardstick. I'll be talking about machine learning, trying to introduce the machine learning from a very high level point of view, and probably try to take you through this wonderful area and introduce this wonderful area of machine learning. So what do you mean by machine learning? The idea is that we don't want to encode the rules into the program. So when I say we introduce rules into the program, is the traditional programming that we do. If this happens, if this particular value is greater than this, do this. Else, do this. For I is equal to 1 to 10, and we are now saying I is equal to 1 to 10, do this. So what we are doing in general in programming is giving the rules to the machine. And where do the rules come from? The rules have to be hard-coded. These rules have to come from the human being. Now, we want to switch gears. We want to make this programming stand on its head. And we want that programs learn the rules from data. And what is learning? The program is learning. What is it learning? It's learning rules. What it is learning, where it is learning from? It is learning from data. So programs are learning rules, and I'll elaborate, it does not really learn rules, but learns the parameters most of the time from data. And we have to empower the machine, and this empowerment is actually comes from optimization techniques or other algorithms which allows the machine. And what is a machine here? The machine is a program. So it's the program or programs which learn the rules or parameters from data. And what we provide to the program are the learning capability. The learning power is what we provide. So we make a model, and the model parameters are to be learned by the program from data. And this is what is called machine learning. So we are not explicitly programming it to learn, and as you can see, the Samuel's definition of 1959, which very much captures this particular idea. So traditional algorithms, we write programs using some fixed rules. When we try to do machine learning, we try to make the machine learn from data. Now, when we want to make the machine learn from data, then we must know how do we human beings learn, or how do animals learn, so that we can then put that particular path and that particular method into the machine to learn. To what extent we can put it, that is another question. But we must know how human beings or how animals or all sentient creatures or how other beings who can learn. So, why do we wish to learn? We wish to learn because we wish to act correctly in future. And what is meant by this? The meant by this is that if you look at the fire, you find that it's bright. If you touch and go near fire, you will feel the heat or get burnt. So you have learned that fire is hot. So from many instances of fire, you learn that fire is hot. Who says that the 11th fire will be hot? Nobody knows. But we know, how do we know? By learning from multiple instances. And what we have learned that fire is hot, and we have learned from experience so that the 11th instance of fire is also hot. So this is the rule that we have learned. This is not given to us. So from particulars, that means from data to rules, is what is machine learning, or what is learning in general. And we can learn out of own experience. We can learn from the environment. And how do we learn from the environment? Because the environment may reward us. The environment may penalize us. If you do something good, the society praises you, so you do more good. If you do something bad, the society penalizes you, so you resist and desist from doing something which is bad. So this is what is reinforcement learning. Your good actions are reinforced positively, your bad actions are reinforced negatively. And this is one type of learning which is also in machine learning known as reinforcement learning, where we learn from experience by the environment giving you positive or negative reward or penalty. Then we also learn from our parents. We learn from our teachers. So when we learn from our experience, as you can see, then the drone is being it is gaining positive. But then, as I said, learning from our parents, we have been learning from our peers, we are learning from our teachers, and when we are learning from so many people, however, this learning from so many people has a subtle difference. What is that difference? The difference is that when our parents teach us, or when our teacher teaches us, it tells us that what you are doing is wrong, but also tells us what is correct. So not only you are told what is wrong, and to what extent you are wrong, but also you are told what is correct. And this is what is known as supervised learning. Your parents, your mother, your father, your teacher tells you that what you have done is right, or what you have done is an error, and there is so much error, so that the teacher also tells you what is correct. So you start moving and knowing what is correct. And thereby, when you look at particulars, different instances that you do, you make mistakes, and then your teacher tells you that you have got 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10, or 5 out of 10, and then when you pass, you are ready to face the world, because you have learned and you have generalized. So degree giving, getting a degree, your learning is actually generalization from particulars to universal. Then you can learn from your friends also, but the friend or the critic will tell you what is right, will tell you what you are doing is right, but will not be able to tell you what is right. So he does not know what is right. He'll say that what you are doing, playing cricket all day long, is good for your health but bad for the examination, but will not be able to tell you what is good. What is your goal? So your critic or your friend will be able to tell you only the error, but not what is the goal. And this is what is known as, my friends, unsupervised learning. So in supervised learning, your teacher, you do something, or you have some data, and you know what is correct. So how do you look at this in the data form? You look at this in the form of these tuples that we have. You have x1, which is the data, y1, which is the label attached to the data, the output. And what you want to learn is a rule. And that is, these are the particular instances that you are given to you. This is the rule F that you wish to learn. And why do you wish to learn? We wish to learn because given a new input, we wish to predict the output Y correctly. So here, who is learning? The program is learning. What it is learning? The parameters of this function. And most of the time, the functional form of this particular function will be assumed. What we will be learning, or what will the machine be learning, and when I say the machine is actually the program, is learning the parameters of F. We say that it's a straight line, or we say that it is some complex function. We wish to learn the functional form of the function, and we wish to learn what are the parameters of this function. And what we are given in supervised learning, you are given the input, you are also given the output. So for a large number of instances, you are given the input and you are given the output. And what you wish to learn is a relation between the input and the output. Now, when the number of outputs are real valued, are infinite in number, the output Y can take any real value, then this is known as regression. For example, of fitting a function. For different values of X, the value of Y can be anything, any real value it can assume. So this is what is known as regression. And what you wish to learn, you want to learn a function here so that given an unknown input, unknown X, you know what is the corresponding label Y. The only thing is that this label is any real value. Now, if you restrict the values it can take, so if we say, okay, the values that the output can take, this Y can take, are finite in number, are discrete valued, then we say that this is a case of classification. So what in both instances we have supervised learning, and in supervised learning the idea is that it is a teacher learning. So the teacher tells you, okay, this is what you're doing. If you do this, this is the correct thing. And while you have not learned, it will also tell you what is your performance, in the sense that it will tell you, the teacher is going to tell you that you are so much far from the correct label during training. And when you have learned, then given an unknown input, you will be able to predict, or the machine will be able to predict, or the software will be able to predict, or the program will be able to predict the correct label. If they are infinite in number, it can assume, Y's can assume any value, then it will be called regression. Otherwise, if you have discrete valued finite number of labels, then it will be a case of classification. Let's see. Suppose you enter into the college. Then what happens is that you recognize that these people are your friends. After a time, you find that these people have similar characteristics and similar habits as you have. So you start grouping with them. And you are also able to identify that people with similar taste, similar habits, group together. Nobody is guiding you. The teacher is not there. What is there is a critic inside you which tells you, are you putting the groups correctly or not? And you put some metric. What is that metric? They are seen together. They have similar habits. They eat together. They are in the mess together. They go to the movie together. So depending on these metrics that you have, you put people together and you call them groups, or you call them friend groups. You could have also called them some other group, but you have put a name. This is what is unsupervised learning. Nobody told you that these people are good or these people are going to be friends. And then a new person comes and you say which group he should go into. No. You have been able to define your own matrix. You have been able to define your own similarity characteristics and dissimilarity measures to put people in groups. This is what is known as unsupervised learning. And Dr. Manish Kumar would be delivering a lecture on this unsupervised learning. It's a big field. But however, what will be absent there is a teacher. It will be like a friend learning. Let's dive down deep into supervised learning. So for that, let's see first look at the data and the representation of the data. So first thing is that let's have some formal things. And what are these formal things? We say that we have a set of input-output pairs. What is input? The data. What is output? Are the labels attached to the data. And these two together are called training data. Similarly, for unsupervised learning, there will be no Y's, there will be no labels attached. So there will be just some Xi's which will be there. For some vocabulary, you see that the total number of these tuples are n, capital N. So we have this data, we have this label attached to the data, and let's restrict ourselves for some time to the case of classification. And if you say that we have a binary classification, then Y can assume only plus value and minus value. It can say only +1 or -1, 1 or 0, -1 or +1, whatever we wish to. So we say that this is a case of binary classification when Y has only, can assume only two values, say +1 and -1. The total size of the training set is capital N. And each such tuple is the training instance. What is a training instance? And this is an input-output pair. The total number of such pairs is equal to N. And in case the labels are not given to you and still you are required to learn, then that will be a case of unsupervised learning. Now let's see. I am Shekhar Verma. I belong to this class of teachers. Then what are my attributes? What are my features? Then you can say your name, your surname, your age, your qualification, your height, your weight, the color of my hair, the year of my BTech, the year of my MTech, the year of my PhD, the area of my PhD, my health, where do I live? All these can then become my features. Now, this is something which is very interesting. So any data point, what we have done is Shekhar Verma has become a set of features. Or better still, if you look at it in a little more depth, Shekhar Verma has become a vector. And suppose I take some 20 features of Shekhar Verma: age, height, weight, qualification, where may I live, what is my marital status, so on and so forth. And I take 20 of them, then Shekhar Verma becomes a 20-dimensional vector. Similarly, if you look at an image, let's take, we have a 100 by 100 image. So a 100 by 100 image, and if you take every pixel and change this into a vector, then it will be a vector which has 10,000 pixels. Then this particular image would become a vector which is how many entries? We have 1,000 entries, 100 by 100. So we have 10,000 entries. So this particular image would become a 10,000 dimensional vector. Then let's look at this a little more differently. Now everybody has become a vector. For example, again, I take another example. I have two books. What I do is I find out all the distinct word in that particular in one document and both the documents. And then I put a vector saying that this particular word is present in the first document, not present in the document, we put a 0. Again, present in the first document, put a 1. So suppose there are 10,000 total words in both the documents 1 and 2. So 10,000 distinct words. So both of them can become vectors now. So any book now can be represented as a vector, and this is, my friends, is known as bag of words representation. So bag of words representation is one of the representations. There are other representations also. So this is doing what? This is converting a book or a document or a newspaper into a vector. We have already converted Shekhar Verma or human being into a vector. We have already converted an image into a vector. So let's look at this a little more differently, and which is very important. Now look at images. When we look at images, then these images are going to be vectors. And if you are in 10,000 dimensional space, now we say that this vector is also a point. So for example, in a two-dimensional space, the coordinates say xy or x1, y1, x1, x2 is a 2-point or a vector in a two-dimensional plane. So an image would now be a point in 10,000 dimensional space. Or Shekhar Verma, which has 20 characteristics or attributes you have taken, or 20 features you have taken, would become a point in 1020 dimensional space. All our documents, for example, you take the Ramayana, you take the Mahabharata, you take the Bible, all of them will become points in 10,000 dimensional space. Is the total number of distinct words in all of the documents combined is 10,000. So now imagine that all images, all video, all documents, all human beings are actually points in d-dimensional space. And every entry of that particular vector will be called a feature. So now we have every xn is then a d-dimensional feature vector or a point in a d-dimensional space. And each entry, each feature is an attribute or quality of that particular data point. So we have been able to convert human beings, images, documents, and all other things that we have as d-dimensional points. So this is, so every data point now, every data point, the feature vector xn belongs to a d-dimensional space. That means each feature vector xn is an element of Rd and is a point in d-dimensional vector space. We'll forget about vector space in the present for a moment because it satisfies all the axioms of the vector space, but we'll not go into details. So it's a point in a d-dimensional space. And as soon as it becomes a vector or it becomes a point in a d-dimensional space, we apply all the rules of maths. So we forget, and we have been able to abstract away the whole thing from its context, and it becomes a pure mathematical entity. Now, as soon as it becomes a pure mathematical entity, we can find out the distance between 2 points. So you can find out the distance between Shekhar Verma and KP Singh, or you can find out the distance between Shekhar Verma and Dr. Ashok Kumar, whose video is on, and he's very, very attentive. So we are able to find out the distance. Not just this distance, we can find out any other measure of similarity. So we say that Shekhar Verma is similar to KP Singh because they are close together in d-dimensional vector space. And we can find out, determine a matrix And this metric, as Dr. Ojha is going to tell you, can be taken as a Euclidean distance, which is called the L2 norm, can be taken as L1 norm, can be taken as any LP norm, a LPQ norm, or we can define, say, a cosine similarity. So any measure of similarity can now be defined between two points, because these points which represent human beings are now, everybody is a point, an image is a point, a document is a point, a human being is a point, a vector is any video is a point in d-dimensional space. So here is an example of a two-dimensional Euclidean distance, the example of, is the L2 norm or the Euclidean distance. Then we can have another measure of similarity, which is known as cosine similarity. What it does, instead of taking the points as the input data points as points, we have taken them as vectors, and we find the cosine similarity, or the inner product, we call it. We call it dot product, inner product, cosine similarity or something. And what we do is we just take A1, B1, A2, B2 plus A3, B3. Or if you use this particular vocabulary, it will be D is equal to 1 to capital D over all the features xi, xj is what is the cosine similarity or inner product similarity. And then if you do not take, then again consider them as points, we can find out the difference between each entry, each individual feature, then that will be called the Euclidean, that will be called the Manhattan distance or the L1 norm. Now, having said this, let's take an example. And the example which I'm going to take is, say we have taken two attributes of every student. One, his performance in mathematics, and number two, we take his performance in chess. Assuming that all the people that we have play chess, and all the people that we have also study mathematics as a course. So we take two attributes from every person: his marks in mathematics examination, his performance in chess. Now, what we want is, we have people whose marks are given to us and their rank in chess is also given to us. So we have two attributes. Every point has x1, which is performance in maths, x2, which is his performance in chess. So we have two classes, class A and class B. Suppose one is from IIIT Allahabad and another is from IIT Kanpur. So we say that we have the x-axis, x1 axis, which contains the performance in mathematics scores, x2 axis, which is 90 degrees to it, which is performance in chess. Now we plot the points. We say this person has got 2 marks in mathematics out of 10, but he's very good in chess, so he goes right up. And then we are plotting all the persons, and we know that this particular group is from IIT Allahabad, this particular group is from IIT Kanpur. So we have two distinct groups, or there can be some overlap also. Nobody says there will be no overlap. Now a new boy comes in. A new boy or a new student walks in and says that this is my mathematics score and this is my chess score. Can you guess whether I come from IIIT Allahabad or come from IIT Kanpur? So now the classification problem is that given the training data in which the labels were IIIT Allahabad and IIT Kanpur, and the attributes were the score in mathematics and score in chess, I wish to learn a classifier, I wish to learn a separator which separates IIT Kanpur from IIIT Allahabad, and given a new student with his scores in mathematics and scores in chess, I wish to differentiate and put a new student and label him either coming from IIT Kanpur or coming from IIIT Allahabad. And let's see, can we build a classifier in this supervised learning regime? So the supervised learning regime is in which the attributes are given. You have some, say, 100 students given to you. Some of them are from IIIT Allahabad. We have put on their t-shirt that they are from IIIT Allahabad, so they have a label. And others we have put as IIT Kanpur, and so that's the label. So it's a case of binary classification. We have two classes, IIT Kanpur and IIT Allahabad. We have attributes, two attributes. Number one is score in mathematics, score in chess. Dr. Abdul, do you have any question? So let's proceed. So we have again two attributes, x1, which is score in mathematics. We have second attribute, x2, which is your performance in chess or your chess score. We have labels, two labels given to you. Either the training data or the students belong to IIT Kanpur or IIIT Allahabad. Now, what is our problem is that given a new student, given his score in mathematics and given his performance in chess, we wish to classify him as a student from IIT Kanpur or a student from IIIT Allahabad. So let's see, how do we really go about doing this? So, simple, we have been able to turn students into points. So every student will be a point in this two-dimensional space. What is the two-dimension? X1 is mathematics, score in mathematics, and X2, which is 90 degree to it, is the marks, is the score of the performance in chess. Suppose, and these green diamonds are IIT Kanpur, these red stars are IIIT Allahabad, and we say that, okay, the greens one are the +1 class, the red ones are -1 class. We have, say, capital N is equal to 100. We have 100 students available, or we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 students given. And we are given a new triangle. This particular person, X, is given to you. Now you have to classify this new person either with IIIT Allahabad, which is red stars, or IIT Kanpur, which is green diamonds. Let's see how do we really do it. Now, what is given to us? That these red stars are IIIT Allahabad, these green diamonds are from IIT Kanpur, and this triangle, blue triangle, is a new data whose maths score as well as chess scores are given. As you can see visually, what we can do is we can find out whether he is nearer to the red star or he is nearer to the green diamond. How do we find out? The first thing that we need to do is find out a metric of similarity. So your choice of the metric of similarity has become very, very important. And you can see that we can have either the Euclidean distance, which is known as L2 norm, or we can have a dot product or a nerve product, we can have L1 norm, or we can have some LP norm or something of that sort. Let's choose the distance that we know. Let's choose the Euclidean distance. So we say, okay, find out the distance to the nearest point of this particular group, of IIIT Allahabad group, and find out the distance to the nearest point of the IIT Kanpur. Fine. So we have devised a method for classifying this particular blue triangle on the basis of distance. And what is the rule that we have specified? We have specified the rule saying that this new point, this particular new point, would be classified in the red star if it is nearest to this point, if the distance to the nearest point is less than the distance to this green diamond nearest point. Now, my friends, the questions should be clear. Number one, how do we find the distance? This we have seen that we are finding the Euclidean distance because we have been able to change the students into points or vectors in the two-dimensional space. Which distance to take? We have say, okay, we are taking Euclidean distance. Though this is under dispute, which distance, but we are taking, say, then we say, what is the algorithm that we are going to do? What is the classifier? This distance-based classifier is very easy. The distance to the nearest point. So this is what is a distance-based classifier. However, let's see, how do we know? So this is what is known as the nearest neighbor algorithm or the KNN algorithm. Why are we doing this? Why are we taking not just so? Let's see here again. We said that the algorithm, I repeat slowly, the algorithm is if this distance of the green triangle to the nearest point in this red star group is less than the distance to the nearest point in the green diamond group, then we say that this particular blue triangle belongs to this red star. Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So, but the problem is, how do we know who is my nearest point? And if this particular nearest point, suppose this particular point is misclassified as green, misclassification, then we'll make a huge mistake. So what do we do is, instead of taking just 1 point, I will take 10 points or I'll take K points. So what I'll do is to classify this particular star here, which is the test data, I'll find out the distance to its K nearest neighbors. What I'll do, I'll repeat. Instead of taking the distance to its nearest point, I will take the distance to K nearest points. So what I'll do is, this is K is equal to 1. Then this is K is equal to 2. Then I'll take K is equal to 3. Then I'll take K is equal to 4. K is equal to 5. I will find out the distance to my K nearest neighbors, and in this case the K is equal to 5, and in this case the K is was equal to 1. And if I am nearest to, in K is equal to 1, this red triangle, the test point star is closer to the red triangle, so this is classified as red triangle. But this might be a misnomer, or this might be a mislabeled data. So to make the algorithm robust, I am taking K greater than equal to 1, and I have taken K as equal to 5. And if I am having more, and I sort the distances, if among the top I get more from the blue squares, I classify this as blue. So if, let's see, if you take K as equal to 1, this is actually being classified as red. But if you take K is equal to 2, then again it will be classified as K is equal to 1 because the distance is lower, as you can see visually. But as you increase to K is equal to 5, it becomes classified as a square, as a blue square, and the algorithm becomes more robust. So what we are doing is, we are classifying a particular point by finding out its distance from K nearest neighbors. And this, my friend, works for both classification and regression, and this is known as K nearest neighbor algorithm. And this is a very, very powerful algorithm. Obviously, you will have to think whether what kind of distance measure that you need to take. See the problems here. See, the problem here is that how do we find out the correct value of k? And this is a problem because this has to be heuristically chosen. You have to use your common sense to use and select the value of k. But then let's see what are the problems with this particular algorithm. This is very, very, and it's more effective than many of the so-called powerful algorithms. But what is the problem here? Let's see the problem. The problem here is that if you get another test point, then again you will have to find out the distance to k points. So you are not learning anything from data. So the first problem is you are not learning any data. You are not learning from data. And no model is learned here. First problem. The second problem, which is very, very extraordinary and which requires our attention, is that how do you find out k nearest points? Here it is fine. Here it is a two-dimensional space. So visually you can find out who is nearest to us. But in a d-dimensional space, in a 10,000 dimensional space, in a 1 million dimensional space, for example, your image is 1000 by 1000, then you are in a 1 million dimensional space. Then you do not know who is nearest to you and who is not nearest to you. So you have to find out the distance to all points before you classify a new point. So the first problem is we are not learning anything from data. Number two, for classifying a new point, you will have to do order of ND operations, where N is the total number of training points and D is the dimension, because when you are trying to find out the distance, you'll have to find out the distance in each dimension. So you have to do order of ND calculations or computations to be able to classify a new data point. And since we are storing all the training data, it will require a lot of storage. And for every new data point, you'll have to repeat the entire process of computation from all data points. So for each data point, you'll have to compute a distance to all. And obviously you can use some clever data structures for speed ups, but the fact remains that you're not learning anything. So we wish first to reduce the total number of calculations, and we want to speed up, and we wish to reduce the total amount of memory. So the first thing that comes of mind is what we are going to do. The first thing that comes to our mind is very, very interesting. The first thing that comes to our mind is that instead of finding out the distance to all points, let's find out the mean of the positive points, find out the mean of the negative points, and find out the distance of the new data point and the negative point, and say, okay, if the distance to the mean of the positive point is less than the mean to the negative point, then you classify the new point as positive or negative. So I repeat, and as you can see in the slide, we have been given these points are these red stars, which are negative points, these green diamonds, which are positive points. This again, we have n data points. Again, we are in a two-dimensional space because we are able to represent this as two attributes, x1, x2. And then what we are doing is each of the points are labeled, that means labeled as red star or green diamond. The problem is that you are given a new test point, which is the blue triangle. And what we have said is the algorithm is that find out the distance to this mean value, which is mu plus, and the distance to this mean value, which is mu minus. And if it is less, classify it as negative, or if the distance to mu plus is less, classify it as a positive point. So this is a distance from means algorithm. So let's see very quickly and try to discover extraordinary things out of this. So what we do is very simple. We find out the distance. So first we find out the mean. So mean is mu minus, very easy, sum of all positive vectors or points divided by the total number of negative points. Similarly, for positive, mu plus, we sum all the positive points who have, that means positive means that those labels are positive divided by the total number of positive points. That is points which have positive labels. And hence we determine mu plus and mu minus. Then, now, importantly, we have been able to reduce the total amount of memory requirement because we don't require data now. We just wanted means and we are happy. So now, what we do to classify, I find out the distance to the negative points and I find out distance to the positive points. How is the distance to the positive point given? By the Euclidean distance is a minus b whole square. The formula mu sub minus minus x whole square, where x is the training point, mu sub minus is the mean of the negatively labeled points, mu sub plus is the mean of the positively or classified or labeled points. So what is this distance? So one observation, whether we take the square root or we do not take the square root does not make a difference. So we don't take the square root. So a minus b whole square is equal to a square plus b square minus 2ab. Mu plus minus x whole square or norm square is equal to norm of mu sub plus square plus norm of x square minus 2 into mu inner product of the mean, positive mean into the vector x. Simple formula in scalar would be a square plus b square minus 2ab. In high dimension, vector representation will be equal to norm of mu minus square plus norm of x square minus 2 into inner product of mu sub minus into x. So as you can see, a minus b, this particular, this represents the squared Euclidean distance or norm square of these two vectors because we are working in a high dimensional space. This is the inner product and this is the squared L2 norm of A. So what was the classification algorithm? Find out the distance to this, find out the distance to this. And now the algorithm would be, or the decision rule would be that you find out the difference, and if it is closer to this, that means if this is negative, that means that this is smaller than this, so you will classify it as positive. If this distance is larger, that means this is positive, then that is classified as a positive point. If this is negative, then that will be classified as negative point. So we just use the whole thing. If you subtract this from this, so a minus b whole square, so it will be a1 minus b whole square minus a2 minus b whole square. So what will be the result? So result will be something like this. Will be equal to, so this will cancel, all these x will be get cancelled out. So what will happen? What will remain is mu minus whole square minus mu plus whole square. Mind you, this is a scalar. Now, this is the magnitude of the vector, which is a scalar. This is a dot product, again is a scalar. So the function now is a scalar. It's no longer a vector. So what we are doing is, we are saying, okay, it will be 2 mu sub plus minus mu minus. So let's see it in our scalar form. It will be 2ab minus 2a1b minus 2a2b. So you take x as common, so this will result. In higher dimension, this will be an inner product. So let's see what is the decision rule. So basically, if it is greater, that means it's closer to, this distance to negative is more than the distance to positive. then it is closer to the red diamond class. So it will be classified as positive, else it will be classified as negative. So we have, this is the decision rule that we have. So basically, if you see what is this, if you look at the whole thing, this will be, suppose this is a scalar, call it B. This is a vector x, which is the test point. This is again subtraction of two vectors. Let's call it omega. So this will be 2 omega x plus b, or put omega also in 2 inside. So this will be omega x plus b. So this will be a straight line. So this represents a straight line, and this is the straight line, my friends. So what is that straight line? This is called, in higher dimension, this become a hyperplane. This dashed line in a higher dimension will be a plane whose equation will be omega into x. That means omega, the inner product of omega into x plus b. If the point lies on this side of this hyperplane, it will be classified as positive. If it is on this side of the hyperplane, it will be negative. So it's beautiful. What is this omega? Omega mu plus minus mu minus. So what will be? You join these omega, mu plus and mu minus, draw a perpendicular bisector. If the new point is on this side, classify it as negative. If the new point is on this side, classify it as positive. And what is the equation of this particular straight line or hyperplane is omega x plus b. So we have a linear classifier. So if you join these 2 points, it will be a linear classifier. And what is the model? The straight line is the model. Remember, what is the model? The straight line or the hyperplane is the model. What we have learned nothing yet. We have just said that omega x plus b is a straight line or the separating hyperplane. This is called the model, the classifier, or the hyperplane, or it's called the hyperplane classification rule. Now, you can see we learned a lot of things. What we have learned is that this finding out the distances of the new point from the mean is actually finding out the model, which is a hyperplane, which is linear, which is a straight line in scalar. However, if you look at the in higher dimension, it's actually a hyperplane. In k-nearest classifier, as you can see, if you look at the k-nearest classification, what we had was, we had a non-linear classifier. We may not have a linear classifier. This is a non-linear classifier that we had. So KNN is a non-linear because the model or the separating line is non-linear. Whereas when we look at the whole thing here, we have a linear classifier. Very good. Now, what is the problem here? Let's look at the problem here, and then let's see and try to develop the first machine learning algorithm that we have. Let's see what is the problem. The problem, as stated, may misclassify in certain cases. And we'll try to find out what is the source of the problem, how to rectify the problem, and then learn a very first algorithm, which is known as the perceptron algorithm. Let's see. And we'll see that this perceptron algorithm is the basis of all machine learning, is the basis of SVM, is the basis of deep learning, is the basis of CNN. Everything that you learn will be derived from this particular perceptron. So let's see what happened to that mean-based classifier. What was the separator? The separator was a function. The decision plane was a function. Fx is equal to omega. What was omega? Mu plus minus mu minus. This was omega or W. This was, you remember, this was the difference between the squared norms of the two classes, of the two means. So this is again a classifier or a decision maker. This is a straight line, and this is the straight line that is being represented by omega x plus b. And what was the decision making? Was the sign of this particular value. What was the sign? Let's see the sign here. So this is, you do a dot, you are doing a dot product here at omega x plus b, and you are finding out whether this particular point lies on this side of the hyperplane if you follow my mouse, or this side of the hyperplane. And this yields a linear separator. What is the problem? Let's see the problem. The problem is really interesting. Can you mute yourself?
Participant, mute yourself.
So let's see what is the problem. The problem is that even when the classes, suppose this is the positive class, the green ovals are the positive class, and these blue ovals are the negative class, we have a classifier, we have a linear classifier which can actually classify them correctly. But the mean based classifier, if you take the mean of these, it will come out to be here. If you take the means of this green ones, it will come out to be here. So this mean based classifier actually is misclassifying. So what is the problem? The problem is that even when the points are linearly separable, this mean based hyperplane may misclassify. And this is a profound observation. What is the profound, or the point of brilliance, or the observation is that this mean based classifier, which is a linear separator, may not separate even linearly separable data points. I'll again repeat. We have assumed that the points are linearly separable. Let us put it in easy words. That means the points can be separated by a linear separator or a hyperplane. So we are assuming that the points can be separated, the negative class and the positive class can be separated by a hyperplane linear separator. However, mean based classifier is not able to do it. So what is the reason is what is important. What is the reason? Can you look at the whole thing? We say, okay, if you tilt this particular hyperplane and shift it, then it will correctly classify. So what I'm saying, I'll repeat. If I shift this mean based classifier here and then tilt it, incline it, then it will become the the red hyperplane, which is the correct hyperplane. So we say, what do you mean by shifting it? That is changing B. Shifting this line, any line omega x plus b, is changing B. And tilting it is, this is tangent theta. So this is the inclination. So if I am able to find out the correct shifting and the correct inclination, then probably or surely I'll be able to find out the correct hyperplane. And this is the problem that needs to solve. But how do we find out? So let's see. What is the problem? The problem is that omega and b are fixed. We want to make them tunable. And we want to learn omega and b from data. So we want omega and to learn the value of omega, the correct omega and the correct b. The correct omega and the correct b. That means I want to shift this and tilt it. So shifting is b, tilting is omega. So I want to tune both omega and b. And this is what, my friends, is known as learning from data. And we are saying that we are going to learn the parameters from data. And this is the start of machine learning. You are making the program learn the parameters. We have already assumed that the model or the classifier or the hyperplane or the separator, all of them are same. But what will be the parameters of this hyperplane or separator or classifier or model is what we are going to learn from data. And this is what is machine learning. And the algorithm, let's start. How do we find out both omega and b? So we are given data. which are xi, yi. We are given n of them. Xi's lie in d-dimensional space. Now what we are going to do is some mathematical tricks. We find that all decision making is being done by the dot product. We involve any magnitude of omega or magnitude of x? No. We are just doing the inner product. We are just doing the inner product. So let's assume we divide all the x's by their magnitudes. So all vectors, all points will become unit vectors. They'll start lying on the unit circle. So since all points are and all decision making does not require any magnitude, omega into x is same irrespective. This is the angle. Irrespective of the value of omega and the magnitude of omega and magnitude of x, they remain same. So we are going to do, we say, okay, all x's are going to have unit vector or unit magnitude. How? We just divide all xi's by their magnitude. So all vectors will have, all points will have unit magnitude. Assume that we are in a case of binary classification, number one. Again, what we do is a second mathematical trick. And what we do is we shift the points to the origin. What we do, we say, okay, omega into x plus b into x to the power 0, because x to the power 0 is equal to 1. So now take x common. This will become omega. This will become a vector which is omega and 1. This will become x and 1. So we'll put this b. So what will happen? Omega into x plus b into x to the power 0. So we'll take x common. So what will happen? It will become omega. Will become, go to one higher dimension, will become omega and 1. This will become x and b. So we now need to find out only and only omega, because b has become a part of x. So this mathematical trick can be seen as the hyperplane is shifted to the origin, and when we shift it to the origin, b goes away, and we divide the data points by their magnitude. So all data points now have unit magnitude. That means they lie on the unit circle. So now x becomes x and 1, omega becomes omega and b. So what we need to find out, what is the parameter left, is omega. I'm sorry, here is an x missing. So the decision is omega into x. Now what we can do is, we see that, let's see what we do. So this is the decision making, and we have to find out the omega. How do we find out the omega? We find out the omega from x, all the data points. So what we do is what is known as the perceptron algorithm, and this is what is known as the training phase. Now we are saying we are learning omega, and this is what is known as training of the classifier, which is nothing but finding out the parameters or learning the parameters from data. So the algorithm is just a one-liner algorithm. What we do is we say take omega initialized randomly, or for the matter take it as equal to 0. Now for t is equal to 1 to n, this is one version of the algorithm, which Dr. Ojha is going to tell you is what is stochastic gradient. So what we do is we take omega is equal to 0. We take the first point. Say t is equal to 1, we take any randomly one point, and we find out whether it is correctly classified or not. We'll come to and see the algorithm a little later, but then the algorithm is very clear. We take the first point, multiply it by omega. If it is correctly classified, then this will be positive, otherwise it will be negative. So what it will happen? If it is correctly classified, do nothing. If it is incorrectly classified, rotate the hyperplane so that it is correctly classified. So what we are doing is, we are correctly, Dr. Vinita, please. So what we are doing is, we are rotating the hyperplane. You take a point. If it is correctly classified, don't do anything. If it is incorrectly classified, rotate the hyperplane. And for algorithm, what we do is, if omega into x is positive, it is correctly classified. If it's negative, it's incorrectly classified. So what we do is, we take the label. We know the label of the points because it's supervised learning. So we take omega into xt multiplied by the label. This can be +1 or -1. So now if this is incorrectly classified, then this omega into xt will be negative. The point is positive, so the product is less than 0. It's negative. So add the value of xt yt. This is +1 into xt, whatever value it is, to omega. And if it is incorrectly classified, suppose a negative point is correctly classified. So the negative point is correctly classified as negative. This is negative. This will be negative. So this will become positive. A positive point incorrectly classified. So positive point incorrectly classified will be, inner product will be less than 0. This will be positive. So this will be negative. A negative point incorrectly classified. So negative, this product will become more than 1. This is negative, so this will be less than 0. That means this is incorrectly classified. In that case, you update and you keep on doing it. And it is known that this algorithm converges. That means if the points are linearly separable, then perceptron algorithm gives you a hyperplane, not the hyperplane. There can be hundreds of hyperplanes. It will give you the hyperplane, one hyperplane, which will correctly classify the points. So if the points are linearly separable, the perceptron algorithm gives one value of omega, which is omega star, which is the correct classifier. Now if you get, this is the training phase. If you get a new point, just find out whether the product with omega into x, if it is negative, put it as negative point. If this is positive, that is positive point. That is what is known as the testing or classifying phase of the algorithm. So now, my friends, we have been able to learn from data. Now, let's see, what is this fx? Fx is the decision rule, which is omega into x. And this is the testing point. When the omega is omega star, it has learned, then the new point can be learned. Now with one more observation, and I'll just take 10 minutes. So one more observation. Let initial omega be equal to 0. So what we are doing, actually omega is actually what? Omega is just sum xtyt plus xtyt plus xtyt plus xtyt. So wherever it is incorrectly classified, you are summing. So what is omega? Omega is actually nothing but a linear combination of this product. So every time what you are doing is, you are
Sir,
Yes, KP sir. Just
in between we got some,
so
we were not
all
getting
data
your voice in
points can be
between.
classified.
Sir,
Okay, now am I audible?
yes.
Hello?
So sir, I will request you, yes sir, you are audible. So may I request now to just, sir,
Sir.
Okay, within 5 minutes, so that we will open
Yes,
for
yes,
5
sir,
minutes
just
discussion
5
also.
5 minutes, 5 minutes. And start,
Sure.
okay.
Sure,
So
sir, sure.
for new classification of new points, you just have to take a dot product with the learned omega star. If it is positive, it is classified as positive point, else it is classified as a negative point. And this is the last slide that I wish to show you. What happens if the points are not linearly separable? Then either you can make the points linear.
अपनी मेल जो जीमेल है
How
उस
do
पे
you
सर्च
make the
करो
my points linearly separable?
जब कभी
We
my
can
log का
make
जो
the points linearly
function होगी,
separable
ठीक है,
by
उसी से login करो,
using some
उसी पे mail
kernels
होती है,
or
उसी
using
से
some
login
kernel
करो।
classifier.
मैंने एक नोटपैड बना रखा था उसमें हमने डाला
Number
है
one.
माय लॉग।
The second observation that we
आईडी
have
यही है क्या बोलते हैं मेल।
is, Miss Dolly, can you mute yourself, please? The first observation is that we can make the points linearly separable by using some kernel trick. Or instead of finding a hyperplane, we try to find out the hyperplane. What is the hyperplane? We say, why do we wish to find out a hyperplane by tuning? Why not find out a hyperplane? Maximize the margin between the nodes. And if you use the kernel trick to make the points linearly separable, then that will be called kernel SVM. But then somebody had a profound idea saying that we can make the classifier itself non-linear. So can we make the classifier non-linear? The answer is yes, and all neural network, all deep learning friends works on the philosophy of making the classifier non-linear. That means we don't want a hyperplane, we want a boundary which is a curvy boundary, and we can make can we learn a function which is a non-linear function. So instead of learning a hyperplane which is a linear function, we learn a non-linear function. One last word. The entire neural network that you see is actually represents a non-linear function. A highly non-linear function is represented by a neural network. And how do you learn? You learn this function by a simple backpropagation algorithm. Thank you. Thank you all. Dr. KP.
Yes.
I'm open for questions.
Upendra, you may unmute to everyone. And if anyone have any question for discussion, we will be happy to take questions. Sir will be happy to take the questions. So rather than too much monotonic, it will be better if you people ask some questions regarding that. So Upendra, allow them, unmute all. If anyone have, kindly please unmute and ask.
Dear participants, you're unmute right now. So in order to ask any question, just switch on your mic and ask whatever you have to ask.
Sir, would you be also sharing some practical examples of these algorithms and about
Yes,
the
yes.
Afternoon session.
Okay,
Dr.
sure.
Puneet Roja would be walk through on Google Colab, and will be implementing not just this, but also regression, which I could not cover in this because of paucity of time. So you will be given hands-on, and a very good hands-on by Dr. Puneet Roja in the afternoon session.
And in classification, right, how can we reduce the bias and outliers? So if you can answer that.
So,
So how can
question is
we?
not really clear. Can you just repeat your question?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was saying if you can explain in the classification algorithms about the concept of outlier and bias,
See,
and
make
how
your
can we?
algorithm more robust. For example, in KNN, we can make the more. Yes. Which algorithm? Sir, your voice is not clear at all. Can you repeat, or can you write on the chat box, please? So your voice is not clear. Dr. KP, what I propose is that they may send the questions to you, and we'll reply them one by one over the mail.
Sure. Even I will arrange one discussion for the questions only. If due to
Since
maybe
the
some
audio
problem
is
if
not
we are
coming too
facing.
well, so what we can do is we can take the questions offline.
So one question is how to remove this
Sir,
bias and
your voice is not
outliers.